Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Rich Habits Podcast, a top 10 business podcast on Spotify, brought to you by Public.com. By the end of this episode, you'll know exactly what moves you need to make before December 31st to keep more money in your pocket, pay less in taxes, and set yourself up right for 2026. My name is Austin Hankwitz. I'm joined by my co-host, Robert Croak. Robert is a seasoned entrepreneur with lifetime revenues of over $300 million, and I'm a multimillionaire in my late 20s with a background in finance and economics. As the show name might suggest, every episode we talk about rich habits as they relate to business, finance, and mindset. So Robert, walk us through what we're going to be talking about in today's episode.
In this episode of the Rich Habits Podcast, we're talking about something that could literally save you thousands of dollars if you set it up correctly in the next few weeks. Think of it as your year-end money checklist. Think of December 31st as your financial finish line, and if you cross it without making these three moves, you could be leaving so much money on the table. And we're not talking about vague advice like save more, budget better. We always talk about those things, but we're talking about more specific, actionable moves that money-savvy people make before the calendar year flips to 2026. Maxing out retirement accounts if you want to save on taxes, using up FSA funds before they disappear forever, making strategic charitable donations, and doing a full financial review so you're not scrambling in January.
That's right, Robert. Most people spend weeks planning their New Year's Eve and what they want to do to ring in the new year, but they won't spend a few hours mapping out some financial moves that could literally put thousands of dollars back into their pocket or save them from a massive tax bill come April. So some of the opportunities that we're talking about do expire on December 31st. So once that clock strikes midnight, those savings are gone forever. So you need to lock in, get some of these things done. By the end of this episode, we're going to tell you exactly what you need to be doing before midnight, December 31st. You can maximize wealth, minimize taxes, and be a happy person. So Robert, let's dig into the first one, retirement accounts.
Number one is all about retirement contributions. And this one is huge because it's one of the few legal ways to reduce your taxable income yearly. If you haven't maxed out your pre-tax 401k or IRA, you've got until December 31st to make it happen. So you got to mark that down and stay on top of this. So let's break down some of the numbers. In 2025, you can contribute up to $23,500 to your pre-tax 401k if you're under 50 and $31,000 if you're 50 or older. And for IRAs, the annual contribution limit is $7,000 and $8,000 again if you're over 50 years old. So now here's the key. Every dollar you put into a traditional 401k or traditional IRA reduces your taxable income dollar for dollar. That's the key here. So if you're in the 24% tax bracket and you contribute an extra $5,000 before December 31st, you just saved yourself $1,200 in taxes. So that's $1,200 you're not sending the IRS, all because you're integrating rich habits before the end of the year.
And here's what most people miss, right? You don't have to do this in a lump sum, right? So if you're behind on these contributions, talk to your HR department or your payroll provider and see if they can increase your contribution percentage for the last few paychecks of the year. Even if you're only getting an extra $1,000, $2,000, or $3,000 into this account, that's real tax savings come tax time in April. Now, here's an important note. This deadline of December 31st only really applies to these pre-tax 401ks and employer-sponsored retirement accounts. For individual retirement accounts, those traditional IRAs in this instance, you actually have until tax day of April 2026 to make some contributions for that 2025 tax year. But Robert, here's my perspective. I wouldn't wait. Because if you got the cash now, you should do it now. As we think about January, new year, new me, you're into some new routines. You might forget some unexpected expenses. You probably have a holiday spending hangover, right? So you're trying to recover from what happened between December 15th and January 1st. I don't think you're going to do a good job of, I'll just make sure it gets done by tax time. Miss me with that. Let's instead get our money invested in the year of 2025, contributed, compounding, and working for us before, so we're not having to do one of these last minute Kobe Bryants from downtown to try and get it in before our tax accountant is drilling us for more info.
Yeah, we covered this last night in the Rich Habits Live. And it really is, I feel like most people check out for the year and start that holiday party season like November 15th. And then they run up the credit cards, they go do all these parties, they go travel around for the holidays, see family and friends, do all of that. So the holiday hangover is real. But here's the plan. Log into your 401k account, look at how much you've contributed year to date. If you're not maxed out, calculate how much more you can contribute before the end of the year, then adjust your paycheck contributions immediately, and please don't wait.
That's a great breakdown, Robert. I love that. Not just the show, we're sharing some ideas, but we're giving them the step-by-step, right? That's exactly step-by-step what you need to do. So that was the first move to consider to try and save some taxes. Now let's walk into the second one here, which is your flexible savings account and your health savings account, and using those strategically between now and the end of the year. These are your use it or lose it accounts, specifically the FSA, or that flexible spending account. If you have one of these with your employer, you need to pay attention because this money literally disappears if you do not spend it by December 31st. So flexible spending accounts are pre-tax accounts that you fund throughout the year to pay for medical expenses. Seems pretty straightforward. The problem is most employers have a use it or lose it rule. So if you don't spend the full balance by that deadline, which in most cases are December 31st, that money goes back to your employer and is gone forever. Fun fact, not even that fun, just a fact, Americans forfeit over $400 million a year in these flexible spending account funds every year because they forget to spend the money. Literally insane, Robert. This is your money. It's taken out of your paycheck. You're just handing it straight back to your employer. So here's what you need to do right now. I need you to log in to that flexible spending account. Check the balance. If you've got $100, $500, maybe $1,000 sitting in the account, you need to have a plan to spend it before the end of the year. Now, the good news is these FSA funds can be spent on more than just doctor visits, right? You can use them for prescription medicines, over-the-counter pain relievers, first aid supplies, sunscreen, contact lenses, glasses like what I'm wearing on my face, dental work, maybe even some mental health services can get covered with this flexible spending account. So if you have a balance, you need to spend it, which means go stock up on the stuff you're going to buy anyway. And if you have a doctor's appointment that you know is going to come up, you need some dental work, need to get your eyes checked, sometimes you can prepay on those appointments in advance so you're able to use this money before the end of the year.
Now let's talk about health savings account. These are different. HSAs don't have a use it or lose it rule, so your money rolls over year after year and you can invest it just like a retirement account. So if you have an HSA, you don't need to panic. But if you have an FSA, you definitely have work to do and you need to make sure you get to those deadlines and spend that money. So here's a pro tip. Some employers offer a grace period into January or allow you to carry over a small amount, usually around $500, but be sure to check the specifics for your plan's rules because you don't want to count on it and lose that money. The safest move is to spend it before December 31st.
That's a great pro tip, Robert. Now, your action plan here, check that FSA balance today. If you got that money, make a list, eligible expenses, go spend it, go start buying sunscreen. You can always use more sunscreen. You're always going to need it. Don't let that money go to waste. Robert, speaking of not wasting money, I think it's really important that everyone understands this reality that if you are not yet investing toward building a nest egg to have in retirement, you will be working for the rest of your life. The only way you will ever be able to stop trading time for money is to have portfolio income that is growing for you over time.
The easiest way anyone can begin investing towards their future is on public.com. You know we love Public, and they make it incredibly simple to build a multi-asset portfolio, including ETFs, stocks, bonds, crypto, options, and more. They also offer access to industry-leading yields of up to 3.7% APY for your emergency funds.
And for a limited time, you can earn a 1% match on all IRA deposits, IRA transfers, and 401k rollovers. That's $1,000 of free money for every $100,000 that you roll over into their platform, which means if you're taking our advice here, you want to, contribute a little bit here, save some taxes, go use Public to do it. Go get the free 1% match.
We always talk about Public, and I love it for you, Austin, because your new account that you put together, that new portfolio of small caps has been crushing it. And I just really love to see all of what Public has to offer, and you can fund your account in 5 minutes or less. Head to public.com/rich habits and claim your 1% match today. Paid for by Public Investing, and full disclosure in the podcast description.
Yeah, I'll put a screenshot on screen here. The small cap portfolio that Robert's alluding to, we started building a little something in the Rich Habits Network for fun. If you are part of the Rich Habits Network, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't know what the Rich Habits Network is, go check it out in the link in the show notes below. It's up 18.5% in the month of September, which is pretty exciting. So we went from 29,000 to now just about 36. All right, Robert, let's now talk about the last financial money move people can make to save on taxes and put more in their pockets at the end of this year.
Yes, number 3 is all about charitable giving. And before you tune out thinking this doesn't apply to you, stick with me here, because even if you're not giving away huge sums of money, there are smart strategies here that can save you on taxes and help causes you care about most. So let's start with the basics. If you itemize your deductions, charitable donations are tax deductible. That means if you donate $1,000 to a qualified charity and you're in a 24% tax bracket, you're saving $240 on your taxes while doing a really good thing. But here's the key. The donation has to be made by December 31st to count for the 2025 tax year. Most people think of charitable giving as writing a check to their favorite nonprofit, and that works, but there are smarter ways to do this, especially if you're giving larger amounts. One strategy is donating appreciated stock instead of cash. Here's how that works. Let's say you bought stock in Palantir a few years ago for a total of $1,000, and today it's worth $5,000. If you sell that stock and donate the cash, you're going to pay capital gains on the $4,000 of gain. But if you donate the stock directly to charity, you get to deduct the full $5,000 and never pay capital gains tax, so the charity sells it tax-free. It's a win-win for everyone. And this is one of the most underutilized tax strategies out there. Most people have never heard of it, so make sure you're taking notes and taking actions here, even if you're only donating small amounts. So if you've got stocks or ETFs sitting in a taxable brokerage account with big gains like most of you do that follow the show, donate those instead of your cash. You get the full deduction, you avoid the capital gains tax, and the charity gets the same amount of money.
Yeah, Robert, we had Steve Latham on the podcast, I think it was like a year or two ago, but he created the company DonateStock.com. So go check out DonateStock.com. We're not affiliated with them. It's just a great tool if you want to donate your stock to a charity. They make it really seamless on how that happens there. So great strategy. Appreciate you calling that one out, Robert. Another strategy is actually bunching your donations. So let's say that you donate $5,000 a year to various charities, but you're not itemizing because your total deductions don't exceed the standard deduction. So instead of donating $5,000 this year and $5,000 next year, you could bunch the 2 years of donations into one. $10,000 total, let's say in the year of 2025. You can itemize this year, take the standard deduction next year, and come out ahead on taxes. And if you're really strategic, you can use something called a donor advised fund. This is like a charitable savings account. You make a big donation to the fund this year, for example, you get a big tax deduction now, and then you can recommend grants to specific charities over time. Great way to bunch your donations together and still spread out your giving over a long period of time. So you get to enjoy the tax write-off in 1 year, but you don't have to deploy all of that capital to the places you want to donate to in that same year. So it kind of spreads things out, a little less pressure on you, but you still get the tax benefits.
Yeah, I love these strategies and episodes like this because it really lays out a blueprint for people to help them understand better all of the things they can be doing with their money. And we always say it's not what you make, it's what you keep. And that's what this episode is all about: getting the benefits, doing good things with your money with these charitable donations, but also really keeping more for you in retirement. And here's something that applies to people that are 70 and a half or older, and that is called a qualified charitable distribution, or a QCD. So if you have a traditional IRA and you're required to take a distribution, you can donate up to $105,000 directly from your IRA to charity. That money never shows up as income, so you're not paying taxes on it. And this is huge for retirees who don't need the money from their required minimum distributions. So instead of taking the distribution, paying taxes, and then donating the cash, you skip the tax step entirely and send it straight to the charity. So here's the plan. If you're going to donate this year, do it before December 31st. And if you're giving larger amounts, look into donating appreciated stock or setting up a donor advised fund. And if you're over 70 and a half, talk to your financial advisor and definitely check out the QCDs.
Robert, building wealth isn't just about making more money. It's about being smart with the money you already have. And that means taking advantage of the tax breaks, employer match, and every opportunity that the system gives us, right? The government and your employer are basically offering you free money through retirement matches, tax deductions, pre-tax retirement accounts, all the stuff that we kind of know and are familiar with, but we're not exactly sure as to how strategically and tactically apply this information. Well, that's what this episode just did. And if you use them and you do it right before December 31st, you could potentially save thousands of dollars.
Remember, wealthy people aren't wealthy because they make all the right investment picks or because they got lucky. They're wealthy because they're intentional with their money. They make smart choices consistently and they don't leave money on the table. That is one of the biggest messages Austin and I put out in these podcasts every single week, is to give you guys the blueprint, all the options, so you can take advantage of all of this just like we do and just like all the other wealthy people that we work with. So go prove to yourself that you're serious about building wealth. Take action on these 3 moves before December 31st, and your future self and your family will definitely thank you.
All right, Robert, I love these breakdowns. These episodes I think are really helpful. And it's not that we're sharing some crazy tax loopholes that Elon Musk uses, right? We're not doing that, but what we are doing is we're just making sure people have full information. Right? If they want to have some larger 401k contributions because they're in a big tax bracket and they're really trying to pull that down, here's what you can do. If you have an FSA with your employer and you didn't really know it was use it or lose it, well, now hopefully you do. Maybe you want to, you're sitting on $60,000 of capital gains on a stock your grandfather gave you. Well, if you donate it, you could probably use that as a wonderful way to support a cause you love as well as offset some taxable income. There's a lot of different bits and pieces to not just building wealth, but preserving it and using it for purposeful things in our lives. And I hope this episode helps a lot of people come to those conclusions.
Yeah, definitely. I love that recap because, I do all these one-on-one calls to help people and give them guidance and education. And I'm always shocked by how many of financial advisors and people out there that are wealth advisors don't teach people anything. They just say, here's what we're going to do, but they don't give them all of the advantages that we share and we try to educate people on with this podcast. So episodes like this can literally change the trajectory of someone's life and financial life and family's life because they're taking advantage of what's already out there and easy for them to implement into their portfolios.
All right, Robert. Now, before we jump into the Q&A section of this episode, investors, y'all need to listen up. If you've been itching for some in-person events in 2025, you are in luck. Our awesome partners over at Blossom Social are hosting their 3rd annual Investor Social Tour, where hundreds of DIY investors across North America meet up in person for an evening of food, drinks, networking, education, and fun.
And they're hitting 7 cities still this year, including LA, Vancouver, Calgary, Chicago, Montreal, and Toronto, hosted at the Rogers Center for the baseball fans, yes, where the Blue Jays play, and New York, hosted at the NASDAQ Center in Times Square. So you guys know how much we love Blossom as an online social network, and they're all about connecting investors online. Well, now's your chance to see what the community is all about in real life at these events, so make sure to check it out.
And Robert, I'm on the website right now. I'm seeing Chicago and Los Angeles are the last 2 stops still available. New York is still available. It's actually happening tomorrow, October 3rd, but it's sold out. So nothing to do there. But you can go visit the SIBO in Chicago, which is where that's taking place. And then the LA Pier Hotel or La Pier Hotel, whatever that is, in Los Angeles on October 15th is still taking place. So you've not run out of time. If you still want to go get some tickets, they've hooked us up with a 15% coupon code, Rich Habits 15, all uppercase, one word, one code there. Go use that at checkout. Link in the show notes below or visit blossomsocial.com/2025 investor tour. Wish we could make some, Robert, but our schedules are just a little too busy for running
Man.
around the country like this. All right, Robert, let's jump into our first question coming from Jared C on Instagram. Jared says, "Hi, Robert and Austin. I'm reaching out for help. For 3 months, I've been researching different business types to purchase as a side hustle with the potential to expand and grow. Among the most successful are vending machines, ATMs, car washes, and laundry businesses. I'm considering buying a vending machine business listed on BizBuySell. The business has 6 machines at 4 different locations, and they currently do not profit share with those locations. It is priced at $21,000. I've researched the cost of buying new machines, and they range between $3,000 to $8,000. That said, the asking price of $21,000 seems high for older, dated machines to me. So here's my question. Can you please give me some of your advice on how to assess the business and make sure that this is a fair asking price? I have deliberately not contacted the seller, so I might hear from you two first. Love your show. Grateful for your help. Keep killing it, Jared." Yes, Jared, here's what you got to do, my friend. In my experience, vending machine businesses are valued at 1 year's total top line revenue. So the 21,000 has nothing to do with the age of the machines, how new or how old they are, or anything like that, or how many locations, how many machines. It only has to do, in my opinion, I don't know anything about this business beyond what you just told me in this Instagram DM. All it has to do is with the fact that this company likely generates about $21,000 a year of revenue. Right? That's revenue. That's not profit. Think about margins of anywhere between 25 to 50%, depending on the types of candies and sodas and your gas to, run around and do this and to pay people, things like that. How do I know if it's a good business or not? I would ask for some financials. I would also, if I were you, I would spend a Saturday visiting 1 or 2 of those machines and just hanging out for 2 or 3 hours at each one, doing some diligence to see if people are actually going up to them, how quickly they sell out, what types of candies they're selling, how fast or how much you can buy at a Sam's Club or a Costco or an Amazon. What do those margins begin to shape up as? And sometimes if the seller is a nice person, they're going to tell you everything they do. They'll give you the whole blueprint. They'll say, yeah, this machine's been kind of tricky, but for example, I had a friend who had a lot of vending machines here in Nashville, and they had a vending machine in the boys' dormitory at Vanderbilt University, and he crushed it with honey buns. He's like, these guys eat honey buns like it's nothing. I mean, they're going through so many honey buns, I got to restock every 2 days. And so he's like, so that's the thing we're doing. Every vending machine owner has like a plan. They know it sells right. They know. So talk with them, let them know that you're interested. Let them know you're always negotiate the price. Ask them why 21,000. Is it last year's, revenue? Like, what are the margins? Like, really walk through the numbers here, but understand, like, okay, if I'm spending $21,000 this year to buy this vending machine route, how much of that is going to turn into profit in my pocket? Likely anywhere between 6 to 7,000, maybe closer to 5, depending on the margins. And now you got to think, okay, how long is that going to be for me to completely get a return on my investment? And what's the opportunity cost of not putting that 21,000 into something like the stock market that's up 15% this year, or gold that's up 45% this year, or whatever else the opportunity cost you want to benchmark that against.
Austin, I think that was an incredible breakdown, and I just want to add a couple things. Don't worry so much about the age of the machines. Worry about the actual numbers. You're spot on. You want to get 3 years of financials, and here's why. Not so much because of the profit. You want to find out if the locations and placement of these machines are solid and if they're pretty straightforward as far as consistent with their sales. Because what you don't want to find is when he placed the machines 5 years ago, sales have dropped off every single year in the locations or some of the locations, because the value for you is finding a vending route, or anyone that's looking at this type of business, that has really good route stops. So the locations of all the machines are constantly selling well. Now, to talk about profits, let's say that this route does $21,000 a year. Austin is spot on. You need to understand the opportunity cost, because all the fake gurus on the internet are going to tell you, oh, my business does $500,000 a year. What you bring in means nothing. It's what you take home. Net to you is the most important part. And if you bring home $7,000 a year on this $21,000 investment, which is probably spot on, you have to understand and deduce, is it worth it for my time to manage, pick up, gas, wear and tear, time and everything to be able to keep an eye on these machines and do all the work? You have to decide, because only you know if that is worth it for your time, Or if you think you can update the machines, have better selection, and keep growing it, that's a different matter. But that's what I would look at is 3 years of financial. Is it growing? Is it stable? And is it worth your time for the amount of profit you're going to get from those sales?
Last thing I'd share is in my experience with vending machines, because I've done a lot of research on them and I've worked with people who've done this and they can work very well if you do it right. But in my experience, for this to be successful long term, you have to be very handy because turns out vending machines break all the time. And if you are not someone who's handy, this is not going to work out for you, Jared. Literally, like these things will break and you got to figure it out. And there's not a lot of people out in this world that are making YouTube tutorials about how to fix a specific, vending machine that you bought from Japan, like there is people that are going to show you on YouTube how to change the oil in your Honda Civic, right? So it's like you got to be able to troubleshoot, you got to be able to be handy and figure this stuff out. So our next question comes from Abby E. Abby says, "Hi, I'm a single income, single family household here in the Bay Area. I'm 40 and currently carrying $50,000 of debt. I recently enrolled in a program called AmeriCorps that negotiates with creditors on my behalf to reduce interest and balances. It's a 4-year plan, and while it does hurt my credit in the short term, I felt like it was the best option given our situation. I own a home, live mostly paycheck to paycheck, and run a small health and wellness side hustle to cover household necessities. Looking back, I wish I'd been able to invest earlier, but right now my focus is becoming debt-free. I really enjoy your podcast. It motivates me to get my financial life on track. Do you think enrolling in a program like this was a reasonable move for someone in my situation? Do you have any advice or perspective? That would be great. I also have already taken a HELOC out on my home. We are single income because my oldest child has health issues requiring one parent to be home all the time." Abby, I am so sorry to hear about your oldest child's health issues. It just puts in perspective, like nothing in this world is more important than our health. It really is. I mean, you can have all the money in the world, but if you have all the fame and fortune and all the cool things that people idolize in this world, but if you do not have your health, you have nothing. And I'm just so sorry to hear that you're going through that, Abby. So here's what you enrolled in. To my understanding, these sort of like credit card debt consolidation negotiation programs, what they're doing is, let's say you've got this $50,000 of credit card debt. AmeriCorps is going to say, okay, you pay us $500 a month every month for the next 4 years for a grand total of $24,000. This $24,000 is, yes, lower than the $50,000 of debt you have. And then with that $24,000, they will, one, take a fee for themselves to do this. And then two, what they're going to do is they're going to then go to these credit card issuers and they're going to negotiate your debt, your defaulted debt, credit card debt. And hopefully they're going to say, okay, we're going to give you, let's say $20,000 to completely wipe out Abby's $50,000 of debt. And they're going to say, no, we want more, we want less, whatever. But let's say 20,000 of this 24 is going to be used to settle these credit cards, which is, that's $30,000 less of the credit card debt you had. But here's the thing though, you're paying into this for 4 years, $24,000, which in my opinion is like, would I rather just take that money and try and settle it myself? Would I rather just say, hey, credit card issuers, jump in a creek. I don't care what you're doing. You're not going to get it until it's 10 cents on the dollar, right? 5,000 is what I'm going to settle for. Like, there's a lot of different ways to think about this. I've, Abby, never been in your situation, so I can't tell you exactly how to handle this. But what I've heard about these AmeriCorpses and like debt consolidation negotiation companies are not great things, because what you're doing essentially is paying just as much in some cases to them over this period of time. And they are essentially pocketing and arbitraging a massive difference between what you could have settled for. So let's say 5,000, right? 10 cents on the dollar versus what you actually ended up paying them, which is, net to them, 24,000 out of your pocket. So it's a really tricky situation. Unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation and miscommunication online about how these work. Some people think like, oh, I'm just going to consolidate my credit card debt. It's going to be great, whatever, it's all done. But in actuality, your credit still goes to crap because you're not paying your credit cards anymore. You now have paid 24 something thousand dollars out of pocket, when in actuality, maybe you could have done this yourself for 5,000, right? That's a $19,000 difference, right? There's all these like little things that could have happened. You've already enrolled in it. I have no idea what this means for you when it comes to like obligation to pay and the 4-year stuff, things like that. But here's what you need to do regardless. I need you to get on an honest budget. I need you to live on as little as you possibly can. And I know you've got this health and wellness side hustle, and maybe it's making money, but the 10 to 15 hours a week that you're using to try and build this side hustle to try and make some money, I want you to compute and calculate what that means on an hourly ROI on your time. And if it's $8 or $10 or $12 an hour on your time to try and make revenue for this business, pause, go throw boxes at Walmart or Target, or go flip burgers at Burger King or McDonald's, or, give chicken to people at Chick-fil-A for $15, $18 an hour and have that like locked in, versus fingers crossed I can try and make some money with my side hustle. Because this isn't I'm going to try and have a side hustle time. You guys are in desperation mode, and you need to put yourselves in a situation where you can earn as much money definitively, right? Trading time with, working hourly versus like, oh, if I only worked a couple more hours on the side hustle, I might get another sale.
That's an incredible breakdown. And Abby is in a difficult situation. She's not alone. A lot of people end up in this place where they're further and further in credit card debt. She's got the HELOC on top of it, which compounds this because she can't use that to pay off the $50K, because I'm assuming the HELOC has already been spent. So it's a tricky situation. And I agree with you 100%, Austin. If you're not making more than what you could make at a regular job with your side hustle, and you're expending all of this time and energy, I would pause it. I would go figure out a way to get as much money as I can immediately to be able to get rid of this debt. And then I would also look at the bylaws and the terms and conditions of America Corp's contract that you have with them and see if there's a way out. And for any of you that are in this situation, exhaust all efforts first before you pay someone else to help you with your problems, because the fees are normally egregious. You could go to ChatGPT for free right now and say, ChatGPT, I have high interest credit card debt. Can you write a letter for me that would be highly effective with my credit card companies to help me settle for a much lower amount than what I owe? And what are the 5 bullet points that I should include in this letter? That right there would take you 5 minutes, and it will guide you legally of the best ways to try and settle these debts on your own, so you're not paying someone else to settle the debts. All the information you need to fix this is out there. You just need to do the work, and then also reevaluate, do a budget like Austin said, because obviously you're living beyond your means and spending more than you make, and that is a recipe for long-term disaster. So I hope that helps.
Our final question comes from Savannah on Instagram. Savannah says, hi, my name's Savannah. I'm a new grad occupational therapist with my grace period ending soon, so any student loan advice would be greatly appreciated. I'm currently on the income-based repayment plan, which means I will pay 10% of my discretionary income every month for the next 20 years, and then any balance after that is forgiven but taxable. So the big question, I'm unsure if I should try and pay my student loans off as soon as possible or pay the minimum amount on my payment plan. I have $176,000 of student loans. I pay $400 a month on my car payment. I've got 4.5 years left on that, and then $500 a month on rent. My salary is $100,000 a year. $21,000 of that is at a 9% interest rate, $59,000 at an 8%, $54,000 at a 7%, $35,000 at a 6%, and then $7,000 at a 4% interest rate. Love your podcast. Any advice is appreciated. Just a girl in healthcare. Try not to feel too overwhelmed. Thank you for your advice. Well, Savannah, thank you for working in healthcare. We need more people like you. You are absolutely crushing it as a occupational therapist. I've got a couple friends that are doing that as well, and making $100K. You're doing it, girl. So congratulations. You deserve that salary. Here's what I would do. You got $100,000 a year. After taxes, $80,000 a year. Let's call it $6,500 a month that you're taking home after taxes to your bank account. So $500 of that goes to rent, $400 of that goes to your car. Now we have $5,600 left. I would take anywhere between $3,500 and $4,500 every single month and use it to start investing. I want to get as much money as I possibly can invested before I start paying off the student loan debt aggressively. Like, that's our rule of thumb, is like, we want you to be out of student loan debt. We want you to pay back what you borrowed. We think that's what people do. I did that, like, pay off your student loans, but don't do it until you have the same amount or more invested in the stock market. So making $100,000 a year with $500 a month in rent and $400 car payment, okay, perfect. So you got $5,600. Take $3,600 of that every single month, so leaving you an extra $2,000 to live on beyond what you just shared with us. That's $43,000 a year that you can start investing. Do that for 3 years, 4 years. Now you've got $130,000, $50,000, $70,000, and you're still in your mid-20s. You're doing the slow, payback plan, whatever. And now you can say, okay, cool. I've got $150,000, $170,000, $200,000 invested in my Roth IRA, my bridge account, whatever you want to do there. Now I'm going to start to pay off the student loans. Maybe 5 years later, you're now making $160,000 a year, $150,000 a year. So now you got a little bit more wiggle room in your budget. There's a lot of different ways to think about this. I believe you should pay them back. I believe you should pay them back after you have the same amount or more invested in the markets and growing for you. Watch the episode we made talking about every dollar invested in your 20s turns into $70 in retirement. So $3,600 a month that you're investing turns into $250,000 in retirement. Put that in perspective. Robert, what's your take?
I think you're spot on. And, I love this strategy because if you look at the real math, if her payment plan is based on 10% of her net income and she nets $80,000 a year, so she has to pay $8,000 a year for these payments collectively with these high interest rates. If she gets ahead of this, gets her base built, gets that $120,000, $150,000 saved and put away, it's going to make more than she has to pay out just by growing and compounding on itself. So it's going to leave her net positive on these payments that she has to make for the student loan debt. And I'm also a big fan with student loan debt. And I get a lot of guff for this, but I'm a big fan of kicking the can down the road because there is a world where we might see a real new program that says, hey, moving forward in 2026, 2027, we're no longer going to allow these egregious 8, 9% interest rates on student loan debt. So we're going to let people roll it all up and it's going to be 4% interest, which then is going to knock down your growing balance with a lower interest rate. So I love your strategy there, Austin, and I think she can become net positive doing this strategy, but also she's letting compounding do its job to help her have a baseline of that 100K plus that we like people to have.
Yeah, I had a friend who's PT and she makes like $150,000 a year. She's like late 20s, early 30s. No money ever invested because all she was trying to do is every spare dollar she had, she was like trying to pay off the student loans. And then I think it was like 18 months ago, 2 years ago, I sat her down and I explained to her that like, hey, you're 27 or 28 or 26, however old she was. I was like, listen, do this. I think at the time it was called like a save plan where you can like defer your student loans for 12 months and like interest doesn't accrue or something like that. But like during that 12-month period of time, you were paying $1,000 a month to your student loans. Take that $1,000 and go put it in your Roth IRA and then let that grow. And she did. And now her Roth IRA is in the tens of thousands that she wouldn't have had beforehand because she was just trying to focus on paying off the student loans. And she would have finally paid them off by the time she was 40, which is like, congrats, she paid off, and I think in her case, about $220,000 of student loans. But it's like, what if you took that same $220 and after tax dollars that would have hit your bank account and put it in the stock market over the same 20-year period of time? So you just got to be smart with this stuff, Savannah. We're proud of you. You're doing great. Just be smart, be smart, be smart. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of the Rich Habits Podcast. It was an absolute blast walking you all through the 3 major things to do with your retirement accounts, your donations, your FSA, your HSA, all the fun stuff. If you learned something, please consider sharing this with a friend. Please consider giving us a 5-star review on Spotify, on Apple. If you've not yet subscribed to the show, hit the subscribe button on Spotify, Apple, YouTube. There's like half of you that listen to the show that aren't even subscribed, which is crazy to us. So please consider subscribing. Thank you for coming back. And if you want more access to Robert and myself, consider joining the Rich Habits Network. This is our community for our biggest fans. Robert, every Tuesday night, we're in there on a Zoom call having a 2-hour conversation via Zoom. I call it our weekly live stream, opening up our playbook, sharing our portfolios, giving y'all the deepest insights and updates as it relates to what we're doing with our money. You are also unlocking investment opportunities. You guys can invest alongside of us into some really cool pre-IPO companies. And it comes with 8 hours of video coursework talking about retirement, investing, real estate, buying businesses, analyzing stocks, all the fun stuff. So be sure to go check out the Rich Habits Network. 7-day free trial is still in the show notes below.
Yeah, I love the network, and I think anyone looking to level up, if you follow us on Instagram or YouTube or you watch the show and you find value, the network is definitely for you, because we do everything that we do here every single week on the podcast in the community and in the network, but it's on steroids. It's completely just way deeper, a lot more great information. Plus, the community has grown and there's so many incredibly smart people in the community. So it's a great place to be if you're leveling up and you're at a place where you can dedicate the time to actually get in there, check out the modules, join the calls, take notes, and really help yourself, because we all have blind spots and weaknesses when it comes to building wealth, and we're here to change that by providing as much value as we can every single week. So thank you for stopping by.
Thanks, everyone, and have a great start to your week.